Hello there, World of Tankers. Welcome to the channel. Hopefully all of you are doing well out there. I'm, of course, your host, Droodles Blitz, and in today's video, we're going to be doing something very spectacular and new to the channel, which is tutorial videos. Hopefully you guys are going to be enjoying this, and I'll be posting more if you do enjoy it. But the first one we're going to be doing today is on how to side scrape. We're going to be talking about heavy tanks in particular. You can side scrape in mediums and sometimes in light tanks, but of course the basic fundamentals of side scraping is learned in heavy tanks. So I'm going to go over a broad variety of heavy tanks, rear-turreted heavy tanks, fast heavies, heavies that don't necessarily have good side armor, and a bunch of other things like that to talk about how to effectively use your heavies in the front line with side scraping or other techniques at that. So of course, if you enjoyed today's video and you want to see more like it, please don't mind smashing that subscribe button down below. But without further ado, let's get straight into it. The first and biggest question is, what is side scraping and how do I perform it in battle? So side scraping is something that you can do in almost any vehicle, as I said. Heavy tanks, medium tanks, even some tank destroyers like the Jagdpanzer E100, you can actually perform side scraping in. And pretty much, as you can see, are done perfectly by the Super Conqueror. Is the lower plate on most vehicles is the weakest spot. So this Super Conqueror here is trying to hide the lower plate. But of course, because it's not using gun depression, it's very hard to do that. So as it says in the name of it, you're going to scrape the side of the vehicle on a wall, making your tracks very thick. While the tracks on the Super Conqueror are only about 102 millimeters thick, if you angle it correctly at about an 85-degree angle, the tracks become auto ricochets to any standard ammunition and heat shells, and it's going to make a vehicle like the Super Conqueror extremely hard to hit. However, as we know, every heavy tank in the game performs differently. So the Super Conqueror has a front turreted design, which means, of course, the turret is on the front of the chassis, where a vehicle like the VK90.01P, the turret is rear turreted. So as you can see here, we have a side-by-side comparison of both of the vehicles. Now, if we pause this really quick, you'll notice there's a bit of an issue with the Super Conqueror. Because it is front-turreted, what that means is the lower plate sticks out when you're trying to shoot the enemy tank, where the VK90 doesn't stick out the lower plate at all because it does have a rear-turreted design. So that means that if you're going up against a tank like the VK90, if it's running a side-scraping position, it is almost impenetrable to the enemy, and it can still shoot you back, where a tank like the Super Conqueror has a very big weak spot because that lower plate sticks out when you're trying to shoot the enemy. So the best way to deal with that issue is just wait for the enemy to shoot you. Don't pull out and don't expose your lower plate. Just keep staying side scraping on that building, backing up and forward just a little bit to try and bait the shot. But once they shoot you in the side armor, as I said, it's almost an impossible penetration unless they do shoot high explosive. So it's going to pretty much auto ricochet right off your side armor. You're going to be able to back up immediately and snap a shell right into the enemy's lower plate. Now, of course, this doesn't hold true to every single tier 10 heavy tank in the game, because as you can see here, we have the FE-Toon-5B-183. And while this isn't a heavy tank, as it says in the name, this is a 183mm cannon mounted on tracks. And what that means is this tank with a Hess shell, 230mm of penetration if you are running calibrated shells, is going to butter through any weak side armor. And the nice thing about high explosive shells is that the angle doesn't matter as long as you overmatch the armor. Well, as you can see, with our 183 in position on the other side of the map, we have an unsuspecting AMX-50B. And while the AMX-50B is marketed as a tier 10 heavy tank, it has great mobility, but one thing it doesn't have is great armor. The sides of the AMX-50B are about 35mm thick. And as you can see here, while the AMX-50B is putting itself in the exact same position as the VK90, boom, a massive Hess shell going into the side of the vehicle. And if you are on any normal public game, that would hurt a crazy amount, and you would definitely be going back to the garage in a very angry mood. Looking at the Mouse, the heaviest vehicle in the game, and as well built during the war, weighing in at 188 tons of pure solid steel. Even this tank here, while big in the size, also has some very big weak spots going for it. So we have placed the Super Conqueror, which has a very nice amount of premium penetration up against the Mouse. Now this vehicle is good on the frontal armor. The upper plate is pretty much impenetrable to any shells, and even the side armor is extremely thick, so you don't need to angle it a crazy amount. But you'll notice here that the Super Conqueror is aiming at a different weak spot, and that is the turret. Boom, penetrating right through the turret. As you can see there, a massive gaping hole. So not only will you have to angle the turret on this tank, but also the sides at a different spot. And there you go, you can see a perfect example of the Super Conqueror ricocheting a shell right on the Mouse's turret. So taking a closer look on why the mouse was penetrated, if we take a look on the armor profile, you can see that the green spots, of course, are the big, massive weak spots, and we have 3 of them. We've got 1 on the lower plate, and as well we got 2 on the turret. Now, when the mouse was first penetrated, it of course was shot in the turret, because that lower plate was hidden. So while the mouse player was using a correct side-scraping angle, the issue was that the turret cheeks were still very easy to penetrate. So what you want to do if you are running a mouse or a vehicle like the E100, where it's a very boxy turret with very weak armor, what you want to do is you want to angle that turret just enough like this, so that way it's 370 millimeters effective on the side of the turret, and as well 290 effective on the front. So it's going to be very hard for any premium shells or even standard ammunition to get through the mouse's turret, a very effective way to not only bounce shots in the turret armor, but as well the hull armor. So certain tanks definitely have their own little quirks that you have to learn on your own. Some vehicles aren't necessarily the best at side-scraping, let's say like the T-22 medium. If you try and shoot the enemy while side-scraping, yeah, you can do it, but the issue is to shoot people, you're going to really quickly expose your hull armor and be shot. But you'll notice here, wait a sec, this T-22 is turning his tank backwards, it's hiding the weak rear armor, and it's actually going to reverse side-scrape. So this, of course, is only achievable by certain tanks. The IS-4, the T-22 medium, the Super Conqueror, you can only do this in vehicles that have a front-turreted design. What you're pretty much doing is you're turning your front turreted tank into a position like this VK-72. So you're sticking out the weak part of your tank on the wall, so that way the enemy can't see it. You're putting your really thick tracks all on the side armor, and then you've got a solid turret as it is. So you're just peeking your turret out, not exposing your weak armor, and you're pretty much impenetrable to the enemy. And as you saw there, a perfect example, the VK-72 bouncing a massive 152 millimeter shell right on the side armor of the T-22 medium. And speaking about vehicles like the VK-72, you'll notice that it just got completely demolished by that T-22 medium, even while it was in a side-scraping position. And you might be wondering, well, how was that possible? Well, it actually turns out that the VK-72 is a very rare exception where the side armor is very weak because of the ball that sticks out right underneath the turret. So certain vehicles, again, have their own little nitty quirks that you have to really learn when you are playing them. Like the VK-72, you actually don't want to side-scrape in this tank, and you actually want to put your hull armor out before you do the side armor. One really nice thing about the Russian heavy tanks, so let's say like the IS-4 and the IS-7, they have extremely strong turret armor. And what that means is you can see here, if you can put a vehicle like these two in a side-scraping position, you can hide the very weak hull armor that they do have, their lower plates, just exposing the turret armor, and you are pretty much impenetrable. You can still side-scrape it, try and bait shots with the side armor, because you can still penetrate through the upper plates of an IS-7 or an IS-4 with premium rounds, but at an angle like this, they're nearly impossible to penetrate, and it's very hard to take out either of these vehicles in battle. One thing you need to remember is while side-scraping is an extremely effective strategy, in fact it works in most battles and most scenarios you're on, if you're on a map like Mines, and let's say you're running a gun depression tank like the Chieftain Mark 6, the T-110E5, or even the T-57 Heavy. Now the thing is that those vehicles all have decent turret armor, so what that means is you can very easily work your gun depression on a ridgeline, where a vehicle like the E100, it's got that massive lower plate, and while you can see the E100 player thinks that he's doing the right job by trying to hide that lower plate, the issue is its turret is still extremely weak, and it's sticking out to not only this Mark 6, but probably the tank destroyers that would normally be sitting all the way at the back of the map. So this Mark 6, while it doesn't have as many hit points, while it doesn't have as much armor, or even as much of a big gun, it's easily going to overcome that E100 just by outplaying it, hiding that weak lower plate, and it's not side-scraping, as you'll notice here, it's just playing the tank correctly. So one thing you always need to know is that side-scraping is effective, but it's not always the right thing to do. Running an E100 on this map, you'd probably want to stay a little bit further back, try and hide your weak lower plate, try and angle the vehicle correctly. So there's a lot of different scenarios you of course want to do in every single game, and of course every single little thing can change the course of the battle for your team. You always want to conserve your hit points, especially being a top tier heavy. So of course, if you did learn something new in today's video, please make sure to smash that subscribe button down below, and as well hit that like button. Please let me know and share the love if you did enjoy today's video. But other than that, I hope you guys are all doing well out there. Please let me know if you want to see more like this, but other than that, I hope you're all doing well out there. I'll see you in the next one.